Roger that, rolling in.
See if you can get eyes on it. Okay, red light. That should be the red light. Jimmy, got anything?
Where the hell are you at now? I'm right behind you, base. Now, roger that.
Yeah, it's hard to know where to start actually because there's such a wide range of different questions. I'm a new parent and I had a committed exercise regime that I'm now struggling to find the time to do.
Yeah.
What should I do?
Wow. Realise that everything has changed. So what was your routine is now not your routine and will not be your routine for a long period of time. I'm going to go personal experience on this. We really struggle with this big time. So 6 years ago when we had Theo, and we'd always exercised. We'd lived that life
Daily.
It's what we did. We'd worked in it. It was our life. And then suddenly you can't, and everything then feels like it's starting to implode. And one of the things that you really do realize when you have a kid and you're not exercising is how much mentally it affects you. Like how much you got out of that exercise mentally. I didn't know how much I got out of it mentally until I couldn't do it. And I felt like I couldn't do it. And the reason I felt like that, and this was quite disempowering, I felt like that because the times where you can't run off structure, you can't run off routine. So it was like, oh, I can't do this. It felt like it'd been taken away from me. And it just got to a point that was untenable. And me and Becky sat down and said, right, we can't do what we were doing previously, which is go to the gym, take this amount of time, train together, whatever. What can we do? Right, we can afford 15 minutes. We can afford that. And we started to do that where we'd say, right, one of us goes outside now for 15 minutes and we just crack out burpees and squats and push-ups, and we had kettlebells and all that kind of stuff. We just cracked that up for 15 minutes.
How many burpees and air squats can you do in 15 minutes?
I can do 100 in 5 minutes, just over 5 minutes. So I can get through a lot of burpees. So you can be productive in that amount of time.
Yeah.
But even if you only do 10 in 15 minutes, that's fine, but you're doing something and you're starting to establish a new routine. That's not your previous routine. Your previous routine's gone. It doesn't exist anymore. It's just gone. So trying to do things and trying to fit things in when you can is now your new routine. It's even if you've got a kettlebell in the boot of the car that you might be swinging around at dinner time at work, but it's that you've got to take those opportunities because the routine is now whenever you can. And you've got to prioritize yourself. This is the really dangerous thing, is if you don't prioritize yourself, if you don't do that, everyone else will suffer. Your temper's going to shorten. It's bad.
One of the things that you've talked about a lot with burning the candle at both ends, and it's one of my favorites of yours, is you're literally stepping over $100 notes to pick up $1 coins. Yeah. It's so good.
Yeah.
Do you think when it comes to sleep deprivation with new parents, like, is there a point where actually forcing yourself to work out when you're that sleep deprived is actually you're just going to burn yourself out, or do you think it's still worthwhile?
Yes and no. So when we had our second, when we had Jackson, the only time where I could work out and get it done, which wouldn't interfere with anything I was doing, was 3:30. That's the only in the AM. I couldn't do it any point through the day. I was working, I was coaching the kids, but and we'd kind of figured out after a couple of weeks, right, they're actually both asleep at this point in time. I was getting up at 4:30 for class anyway, so I pulled it back an hour and I could fit it in then. But I do well off not a lot of sleep. So if I can get 5 hours sleep, then I'm styling. But, and this is a really, really big but, you need to sleep. So if I could steal 10 minutes or 15 minutes in the day to fit in a period of work, that is a lot better than getting up earlier to do something that's going to have a detrimental effect on me. So yes and no. You've got to understand that, like, if you can't get up earlier because you've literally had 2 hours sleep, you need that extra hour, then stay in bed, get that extra hour, but do something in the day. It could be 5 minutes, could be 10 minutes, could be 20, doesn't matter, but do something in the day to make up for what you've missed in the morning. So it's that trade-off to say, what suits me? What am I best optimized doing on here? So yes and no. But yeah, stepping over $100 bills to pick up ones is...
The other thing is with the sleep deprivation, and I can't talk about this because I haven't had little babies and little kids before. I've got 2 stepkids, but they came into my life when they were 11 and 9. But what I have seen with people who've actually worked for me over the years, who have had kids, is the sleep deprivation, and suddenly like sugar becomes a huge part of their lives because they're just looking for that
big time, and you're like living
just
off
to
stimulants.
keep getting through.
Huge. So you've got to be quite. The discipline is where it kicks in. Like you've got to be very, very disciplined, because once you take sleep away from someone, they're going to start doing pretty random things. Like everything suffers. So this is why the mental health aspects of exercise during that, it's the most beneficial thing. Who cares what you look like? Who cares? It doesn't matter. If you've been training 5 days a week, let's say you've been doing CrossFit 5 days a week, and you might even be doing double up sessions, and now you're not, you are not going to look as good as what you did. That's fine. Just take that on the chin. For a period of time, this is just how it's going to be. You will not be in the shape that you were. But that being said, you can still function, and you can still get that mental kick that you would get from CrossFit. Yeah, it's not that high level release that you're going to get, but you can still get that. But you've got to make that happen. And once you don't, you carry on not getting it. And that's it's that cycle that'll run, is once you stop getting that, then you're going to beat yourself up for not getting it and not get it even more. You've got to find that time. And that time, you have that time. You do have that time. It's 5 minutes or 10 minutes. It's swinging a kettlebell. It's push-ups. It's burpees. It's squats. It's anything. You have the time to do that. What you don't have is, I can commit to going to CrossFit at 5 a.m. or 6 p.m. every night. You can't, because you're literally dealing with a nuclear device that needs disarming multiple times a day. And you don't know when that is.
Stay away from the V's.
Stay away.
The V drinks.
Yeah. Stay off. Stay off the V's. Stay off the energy drinks. We'll do a podcast on energy drinks. It's absolute death in a can. If you need an energy drink, you have a bigger problem than needing an energy drink.
Okay. Here's a good one. I have low body confidence, and I constantly feel self-conscious in public areas. Yeah.
You'd be surprised how many people this hits. And it could be, that body confidence could be anything from, being what you perceive as overweight to certain parts of you that, you don't like. But I'm just going to deal with that. Something that you can do about is your body composition. So I'm going to talk this now purely about body composition. You need to decide how long you want it to last for. So let's treat this as what a lot of people class it as is a prison sentence, is you don't like the way that you look. Well, you can do something about it. You can actually do something about that. So you need to decide how long you want this to last for. And that then will dictate what you do. So if you're not willing to do the work, if you're not willing to put something in on that, then you need to close the book on it and say, this is how it is, and this is how I'm going to feel for the rest of my life. And you know what? That sucks. That's not, for me, that's not an option. That's not an option. So you take that off the table and you say, right, where do I want to be in 12 months? Do I want to be in a better, the same, or worse position than what I'm in? I'll take the better position. Well, you've got to understand now that you're going to sign up for 12 months of hard work and 12 months of up and down. And we've talked about this on podcasts before, is you are not going to execute this flawless plan. You're not going to put into this thing where you are suddenly not going to eat any stuff that you shouldn't eat. You're going to exercise every day and you think you're not going to miss that for 12 months. Absolutely not. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in the state that you're in. You're in this state because you've got there, and it's generally through some type of lack of discipline that's happened. So you need to understand that it's fixable.
It is. It can be. But it can also be people who in their own mind have made a decision that they don't meet the standard that they've set.
Yeah.
Like I've met people who look awesome, but for whatever reason, because they don't have six pack or they're not huge,
or
they're just
body
like
dysmorphia.
they just think that I'm not good enough because I haven't reached my idea of perfection.
Yeah, and that's kind of with what you've said there. That answers the own question. They've not reached their idea of perfection. You're never going to reach it. It doesn't exist. Perfection doesn't exist, because once you get there, what are you going to do?
I worked with a guy in the UK, and he had this image in his mind from when he was like 16, 17, that if he was huge and ripped, that he would have the hottest girlfriend and he'd live happily ever after. And so like he he dedicated his whole life to getting there, and he did get there, but along the way he just had all of these failed relationships, and it never ever worked because he was so intense and he was so obsessed with this ideal that just other people couldn't be around him.
It's a break from reality. It's, you know, it's kind of like, it's them people that, you know, if you bring them over for dinner, you invite someone over for dinner, and it's like, oh no, I can't eat that, and I can't eat that, and I'm doing this. It's like they manage to find a way of making dinner about them. You know, if I go over, I'm tight with my food, but if I go over to someone's for dinner, I'm going to eat what they serve. I'm not going to make it about, I'm the guy that doesn't eat, you know, wheat heads or whatever. It's just like, come on, just, you know, they'll find a way to make that about themselves. So let's kind of get back on track with now. You know, I'm purely looking at this from someone who's needs to change body composition. You know, there's an abundance of fat, and they can do something about that in terms of leaning out. The commitment has to be there to take on a exercise regimen and nutritionally clean up what's happening. Now, that could be reducing the cans of Coke you drink to Diet Coke, and then, you know, increasing the amount of water you drink, and then reducing the amount of teaspoons of sugar in your coffee. You know, those steps. But where do you want to be in the future? Stop obsessing on what you've been like. Stop obsessing on where you are now. It's like, right, this is the start point. There is no finish point. It's endless, but this is the start point. Do I want to move forward? And if you're not moving forward, you're moving backwards.
100%. Yeah. By the way, for dinner tonight, I've prepared a bowl of wheat heads, so look forward to that.
I won't eat those.
You better. You just said you would. What does a typical day of food look like for you?
Right. Do you want a typical day of food or a typical day? Because it kind of
just a typical idea of what you're eating in a day,
right?
I guess.
So I'll get up at 3:30 and I'll hit the ice bath. Oh, not for long. It's only like 2-3 minutes, and then I'll go straight into a coffee, which is a scoop of protein powder. I just use instant coffee and a scoop of coconut oil and grass-fed butter, and I'll hit that with a blender, and then that'll do me then for a long period of time. Coach at 4:30, coach at 5:30, workout after that, and then go home. That's where after workout I'll go home. Generally I'll take like a protein shake because I get home, shower, and then do the school run. So I'll do the school run. Usually after that, I've got another training session that I do in the day. I'd normally do that straight after that. Then go pick my little boy up from school. I'll have around about from preschool. I'll have around about midday. Then it will be some type of meat with generally salad, like meat and salad, or sometimes meat and eggs. Pick the eldest one up from school. We'll sit down. We'll have dinner about 4:30. Dinner will usually be meat, greens. That's generally it. There'll be generally like 2-3 types of greens on there. At the minute I'm into Brussels sprouts cooked in butter, legit, real good. And then I can say like some type of steak or something with that. Then I'll go back down the box and coach the evening. When I get back from the evening, if I'm hankering for something, I've got this real nice mint chocolate protein shake, that or a banana one that I'll hit. Or sometimes I'll do like nuts and seeds in Greek yogurt with some fruit. So I don't eat a hell of a lot, but what I do is pretty optimal. Through the day then I'll also sup on some aminos. So I'll just have them as a drink. I'll drink a lot of water. And then supplements wise, purely just joint. So with, I have some protein powder, but some joint stuff, glucosamine, fish oil. Just, the joints aren't what they were. So yeah, that's kind of like what most of my days look like.
For someone for anyone listening who thinks that is just unachievable, like that sort of diet would be unachievable for me. Where do you, because your diet is something that just evolves over years of better and
Don't
better
forget
eating.
that fits in with my schedule. I've got a schedule in terms of, I'm either at CrossFit, I'm at home, or I'm with the kids, picking the kids up and dropping the kids off. So it's kind of, it works in with that. It works in with the nature of what I do through the day. So they are very, very synergistic.
So someone listening to that going, well, that sounds amazing and I'd love to eat like that. The reality is, like, diet like that evolves over years and years of figuring out what food do I need for my schedule, what works for my body, and all of those things. So how do you, what do you say to someone who just wants to start? But what do they start with? Like, should I start with having some BCAAs and a little bit of protein?
No, they should start with doing something that they can make into their schedule. And this is where I'm really against, and you'll kind of get this through the theme as we carry on with these podcasts. I'm really against kind of jumping into a particular camp. I think it's so dangerous. Anything works if you're going to do it, and if you're passionate about it and you believe it, then it's going to be better for you. If you can get on board with it, because it gives you that traction. There should be some type of passion linked with food. If you enjoy cooking, then that's really good. That's really, really good, because you've got some pride and some passion about what you're doing. But I would say what can be more important, it's like a thing that I'd say a lot when we'd be skydiving would be, it's not what you do, it's how you do it. It's really, really important. It's not what you do, it's how you do it. So, maybe don't worry too much about the types of food that you're eating. Now, really understand what I'm not saying is, oh yeah, cool. I'm not saying you can have something that's healthy for breakfast or a Big Mac. I'm saying, don't be stupid. Make a good decision. But I'm not wanting to say you should have porridge or you should have bacon and eggs. Two completely different camps, but they'll both serve the job that you're trying to do. What is better is to get into that routine of having them. So if you can build out that time that says, right, this is what I do at this particular time, and I have that, and that's part of my routine. And if you can maintain that now for a week, a month, 6 months, that's that box taken care of. You build that out then to your midday meal, and you build that out to the evening meal. And then in a year's time, you are where you want to be. What you are eating will evolve with that. But I think people put too much emphasis into, I've got to eat this and I've got to eat that. And so much is coming because they're trying to get that fat pill. They want that miracle thing that they're going to eat that's going to get them to lose 16 kilos in a day.
Did you see all that hate? Well, not all that hate, but all the fanfare all over the internet about Adele and how much weight she lost, accompanied by a lot of hate. So Adele's always been famous for being a pretty big girl, right? She hasn't released an album for a long time. She's stepped away for a few years. She says, I'm just going to work on me. Anyway, so she came out a few weeks ago and there were photos of her and she's just dropped all of her weight and she's tiny and she looks incredible. Like, she really does. And everyone's been asking, how did you do it? How did you do it? Like, I want to do it. Like, what's the magic thing? What did you do? You had surgery, blah, blah, blah. She just said, I literally have been eating 1,200 calories a day. And the pain that would go along with eating 1,200 calories a day, that's such a small amount of food. Yeah. And I don't know if she had any sort of other procedure, along with that, but, that's a small amount of calories, right? And that's that's a really, really big commitment.
That's a huge commitment. And that's when you look at something like that, you've always got to ask that, are you strategic or are you tactical? That's a very, very, I would say, a very tactical decision. I'm doing this for this end result.
So would you believe the comments that people were making about it were basically she might as well have come out and said that anyone who's not super skinny isn't good enough. Like, why couldn't she just have been happy with how she originally looked?
Because she wasn't.
She wasn't, so she made a change for her, not for you.
Yeah, and this is one of them really common things, and you see this so much, but the easiest way to make yourself feel better about your own lack of performance is to bring someone else down. It's the easiest way to do it.
Comparison is the thief of joy, right?
The thief of joy. Yeah. Absolutely. And whether that's comparison to your former self, whether that's comparison to someone else, whatever it is, but it is. It's like people get caught up in that emotional thing of they've done something that I'm unwilling to do. I'm unwilling to do it. I'm not unable to do it, because I could do it. One person can do it, another person can do it. But I'm unwilling to do that. Now, what I can't do is admit to myself and everyone around me that I am too lazy, too incapable to do that. I've got to tell myself, I could do that, but there's got to be some reason why I'm not going to admit my lack of performance, and it's going to be
someone else's fault.
It's always someone else's fault.
Yeah, 100%. I'm in a toxic workplace, and it's affecting my life outside work.
Yeah, this is... I've spoken to quite a few people recently that have that are in situations like this, and I've been in this type of situation myself. So, you've got to start with that obvious question: is do you have an out? Like, do you have an out? Is this something you can walk away from? And a lot of people, the answer is generally no, because financially, and it becomes this crux where it can stop you, it can hinder everything that you're doing and stop you looking for other work and so on and so forth. Because when you're in that toxic place, you can kind of start to believe what's happening. Now, first of all, you got to ask that really brutally honest question: are you doing something that's contributing to this? Like, are you doing something that's honestly, making this toxic? So let's say you can identify 1, 2, or 3 key players that are, and that's all it takes. In a workplace of 15, 20 people, you have 2 people that are toxic, it's going to spread through the entire thing. So, and that comes back to what we just said. This is a really good tie-in, is they'll be being like they are because of their own lack of performance, but they're going to try and bring everyone else down. This person works too hard. This person's always doing, this person's a bro nose or whatever. So are you doing anything that's contributing to that? Or can you affect the way they are with your interactions with them? Or is the relationship too bad? If there's anything that you can do to help that, help that. If you have relationships with these people, then use that strength relationship to try and kind of dial down and dampen down the toxicity that's happening. But alternatively, the way that I'm going to look at that is it will generally come from usually people that have got a little bit of authority. Otherwise, it can get stamped out, if there's some good leadership in there. If there's people that are below you, can you stop it getting to them? Like, can you absorb it and stop it getting to them? And can you still be productive with your team and be the bigger person? The thing you've got to watch with that toxicity is that you don't get on board with it. And that's really, really hard to do, because there's enough people saying it, this person's an a-hole, this person's that. And it's really easy to be complicit by just agreement. You don't have to be calling people, but it's really easy to be complicit just by agreeing with that. And sometimes that's where you've got to take a stand, and you've got to be able to say to these people, unacceptable. Like, why are you doing this? And that takes a hell of a lot of guts, because you've got that feeling. There's always a feeling that the tide is with them, that the momentum is with them. And generally, other people in the workplace just don't want to say anything because they feel bullied and pressured. It only takes one person to say, no, this is not acceptable. You don't behave like this. You don't do this. Maybe you've got to be that person. But I think it's a really common thing now.
It's a really common. It is really common. And bullying in the workplace is really common.
So bad. And it can get to a point where, if people are saying things often enough, with enough volume, you can start to believe it. You can start to doubt your own ability in what you're doing. That affects everything. Then, instead of applying for another job, you're thinking, well, I'm not good enough to get that other job.
Bullying comes in all shapes and sizes too.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not, when you think of a typical bully as someone who gets in your face and tells you that you're shit.
And I think that's the old school pre-internet days. Yeah.
But bullying can also be, and here's a great example, agreeing something with a peer before an important meeting and going into that meeting and having that peer not only hold up his end of the agreement, but completely throw you under the bus because it would make them look better and make you look like an idiot. That in itself, I've seen that happen so many times, and that is the sort of thing that destroys people's confidence. And it's also a really good, it's a really good example of where culture has gone wrong in a part of a business.
You can always identify the people that want the team to do well. because they want the team to do well. There's no self-interest. They're not doing something to get, curry favor with the boss or gain that ladder. And when you start to get people like that, and especially when you get people like that in a leadership position, and this is the crazy thing, is people like that can get into a leadership position, and they can get pretty high. The people with narcissistic traits and sociopathic traits, they can get high. I mean, ultimately when it collapses pretty heavy for them, but you've got to understand that sometimes doesn't happen, and it's not fair and it's not right, but it happens. What can you do to combat it?
It's all about what's in your control.
Completely.
First thing is to look at it and go, am I actually the problem?
Yeah.
There may not be any toxicity in the workplace. It may be that you've become toxic because you're just over it and you're ready to move on to something else.
That's a really viable thing. That's an actual thing.
So you've got to look at yourself and go, am I the issue? And there's actually nothing wrong with the workplace. But if you've reached that point, it's probably pretty hard, and you may need someone to actually call you out and hope that someone else would call you out on that.
And that's relationships. If you have got to that point, the likelihood is...
Yeah, that's right.
It's pretty minimal.
It's probably not for you, and it's time to move on. And then if it is really toxic, what can you do? What are the things that are in your control? Can you address it with the people who are making it toxic? Can you go to their higher ups and give them the feedback? And not only give them the feedback, but actually come with a solution. It's one thing to give. It's one thing to give your higher ups. Exactly. It's one thing to give your higher ups feedback, but the question is always, what's the plan?
Yeah.
Like, what's your solution?
Yeah. And that's what people want. They want those results. You've got to be results driven like that. It's very, very easy as well when you've got someone in a leadership position that is toxic, and let's say the micromanaging, the calling people out on personal things that they're just crossing that line. When you've got someone like that, it's really easy then to make it about them. So all your energy is, how can I bring this person down? That's actually what they want. They want to be the center of attention. They want everything to be about them. What you've got to look at is, how is this affecting the rest of my team? Because that's what I can influence. I can actually be the filter for that. And I can be the one that says, right, I feel like this because of this person. But these people can feel good, and these people around me can feel great because of me. I can stem that flow, and I can give these guys some inspiration, give these guys some drive, and I can kind of help with that situation. So that's the way that I'd be looking at it. If it's getting to a point where it's untenable, then, if there's doubt, there's no doubt. You already know the answer. You've got to get out of that situation.
My advice from experience is, if you're onto it and it is really, truly toxic, then leave, because you won't believe how amazing it is working for a business that has a great culture. And when you get there,
there's nothing like it.
You'll be jumping out of bed every day to go to that place.
And I've been in that situation with workplaces in the past, and when you get to somewhere that values you as a person, and what that's not is, they're giving you pay rises every week and they're pumping your tires up. It's not that, but they actually value you as a person, as a player in that team. They understand the role that you play within that team. You understand the role that you play within that team, and you understand how your efforts every day affect everything above you. It's not the boss coming, we need to get more money in the company because I got to put 98 in the Ferrari. It's not that. It's like that boss is explaining to you and the people around you why and how you are so important. It's the greatest, most empowering, because you want to work more for them. You want to go to bat for them. It's a great feeling. You
couldn't run anything else but 98 in a Ferrari, though, could you?
That's what I hear.
Yeah. 91?
I think 91.
I don't think it's going to work. Okay, where can people find us?
Yeah, we've took a bit of heat recently on from a few of the listeners saying that it's ending. The podcast is ending a little bit abrupt, and so we've had a few. We've took heat. Let's just say that we've took heat. So if you want to catch us on the socials, you can do so. Everything through the website, the altitudeleader.co.nz, on Instagram at the Altitude Leader, on Facebook at the Altitude Leader, Twitter Altitude Leader. So if you want to continue our meanderings, feel free to do that on there. Right, rap.